Putting all your eggs in one basket, energy-wise, that creates systemic risks, makes us less flexible to deal with, like future challenges and opportunities. Not a good situation.
Right, totally agree. So let's break down these energy sources one by one and maybe start with natural gas. It's often called a transitional fuel, right? What are we looking at in terms of incentives to make that transition work?
What's interesting is the focus on minimizing the environmental impact. So the analysis, it highlights these potential tax credits and grants specifically to encourage the adoption of CCS tech, carbon capture and storage. The idea is you capture the CO2 emissions from those natural gas plants before they get released into the atmosphere.
Okay, so basically trying to make natural gas cleaner while we're still using it. Anything else on the table?
Yeah, there's also this idea of performance-based incentives, right? Like trying to encourage efficiency improvements in natural gas power plants. For example, incentives could be tied to the heat rate, like how much energy you need to put in to get a unit of electricity out. Lower heat rate means higher efficiency, less fuel burned. If companies can squeeze more power out of less gas, well, that's good for their bottom line and for emissions.
For sure. And we can't forget, the U.S. is a big player in the global natural gas market, right?
Huge player, actually. The U.S. is the top producer right now, and the analysis, it really emphasizes that export potential. I mean, promoting natural gas, especially if it's coupled with CCS, as a cleaner alternative to coal in other countries. And that could really boost the U.S.'s, global standing, right?
Makes sense. But what about the impacts closer to home? I'm thinking about the communities involved in, natural gas extraction and processing. There's got to be both economic pluses and some potential downsides, right?
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, developing those natural gas resources, that can create jobs, it can boost local economies,
Hmm.
but the analysis also acknowledges the, environmental concerns and the socioeconomic impacts. You got to think about things like potential water contamination or air quality issues. So it's about carefully weighing those economic benefits against, environmental responsibility and making sure those communities are part of the conversation.
100%. Okay, let's shift gears to solar plus storage, a combo that seems to be gaining a lot of traction lately. What kind of incentives are really moving the needle in this area?
Well, the investment tax credit, the ITC, everyone points to that. It offers some serious tax benefits for investments in solar energy systems, and the analysis really stresses the importance of expanding and enhancing that to include storage tech. And get
Yeah.
this, in some areas, unsubsidized solar is now cheaper than building new natural gas plants. That's a game changer. But the analysis also says to really capitalize on that, you got to solve the intermittency problem, meaning including storage in the ITC isn't just logical, it could be economically revolutionary because as battery costs keep dropping and they get better at storing energy, that solar plus storage combo is becoming more competitive and reliable by the day.
And speaking of batteries, the tech itself feels like a critical piece of the puzzle. What's the analysis say about supporting R&D in that area?
Basically, keep that federal funding flowing for R&D on all sorts of battery tech. It's super important. We need breakthroughs in energy density so we can pack more power into smaller spaces. We need longer cycle life so those batteries last longer. And safety is a huge concern. And maybe even looking at completely new battery chemistries beyond lithium ion. Something that could bring costs down even further and improve performance.
So it sounds like the U.S. has a real shot at becoming a global leader in solar and storage.
Absolutely, yeah. If the U.S. invests strategically in solar and storage, it's a golden opportunity to lead the world in a key clean energy sector. That means attracting investment, driving innovation, creating high-value jobs right here at home.
And for the average person, lower electricity bills and more energy independence, that's got to be appealing.
Totally. The analysis suggests that if solar plus storage really takes off, it could democratize energy access. Homeowners, communities, they could generate their own clean power. Plus, it creates jobs in manufacturing, installation, maintenance, the whole industry.
All right, let's tackle nuclear energy next. I know it can be controversial, but this analysis, it presents nuclear as a stable, low-carbon source of baseload power. What incentives are being considered to, support its growth?
The focus seems to be on encouraging the development and deployment of these advanced reactor designs, especially small modular reactors, SMRs. Unlike those massive traditional nuclear plants, SMRs are designed to be factory built and shipped, so they're more flexible and might be safer, with their passive cooling systems. The analysis suggests things like direct funding for pilot projects and tax credits to get them adopted faster.
So these SMRs, they do sound promising. But what about the regulatory side of things? I mean, nuclear projects, they're famous for those long, complicated permitting processes.
Yeah, that's a major bottleneck for sure. The analysis is very clear we need streamlined licensing processes, got to make them more efficient. Otherwise, new nuclear projects, including SMRs, they can't get up and running quickly or affordably. Even the coolest tech can get bogged down in regulations.
So basically, by advancing nuclear technology, the U.S. could not only shore up its own energy supply, but also become a player in the global nuclear market.
Exactly. Investing in and actually deploying advanced nuclear tech, that could enhance U.S. energy security, right?
Hmm.
And also position the country as a key exporter of this low-carbon power tech and the knowledge that comes with it
Yeah.
to countries looking to cut their emissions. Big opportunity.
And what about the impacts on communities where nuclear plants are located? It's known for good-paying jobs, but there's also that public perception, safety and waste disposal, big concerns.
Yeah, no doubt. Nuclear plants, they do offer high-paying jobs, long-term jobs, and contribute a lot to local economies. But the analysis, it really emphasizes the need to build trust with the public. Being transparent about plant safety protocols and having a clear, effective plan for managing and disposing of nuclear waste, addressing those concerns, that's essential if nuclear power is going to be viable in the long run.
Got it. Okay, moving on to energy storage, which the analysis calls like absolutely essential for integrating all these variable renewable energy sources. What needs to happen incentive-wise to really scale up energy storage?
So just like we need to support battery tech for like electric cars and solar panels on houses, the analysis says R&D funding for a whole range of advanced energy storage technologies, that's vital. Not just improving lithium-ion batteries, but looking at solid-state batteries, flow batteries, even stuff like pumped hydro, which has been around for a while. We need a toolbox of storage solutions to meet different grid needs, different durations. And investing directly in big grid-scale energy storage projects with incentives, that's key to making the grid more reliable and allowing us to use a lot more renewables.
Sounds like another big export opportunity for the U.S., right?
For sure. Leading the way in developing and using cutting-edge storage tech, that'll put the U.S. in a strong position globally. We can help other countries transition to cleaner energy systems, export those technologies, share that expertise.
And on the socioeconomic side, what does a booming energy storage sector look like?
It's a rapidly growing sector, creating jobs in research, development, manufacturing, deployment, everything. Plus, when you have widespread energy storage, you're more resilient, right? Communities are less vulnerable to power outages and disruptions, which is good for everyone, both economically and socially.
Absolutely. Now, we can't forget about some of those more established renewable sources like water. You've got traditional hydropower, and then this newer field of tidal energy. What are we seeing in terms of incentives for those?
So for hydropower, which is already a major source of renewable electricity in the U.S., the analysis suggests that incentives should focus on upgrading that aging infrastructure, making it more efficient, boosting generating capacity, and improving the environmental performance. For tidal energy, which is still pretty early in its development, the analysis recommends continued funding for research, development, and pilot projects. It's about exploring and refining those technologies.
So basically, maintaining what we've got and exploring new possibilities with water-based energy.
Exactly. Investing in both, modernizing hydropower and exploring tidal energy, that builds a more diverse and secure renewable energy portfolio for the U.S.
And what about the socioeconomic factors for water-based energy?
Hydropower. It supports jobs in operation and maintenance, but the analysis makes a point of saying that we've got to be careful environmental stewards. We need to minimize impacts on, like, river ecosystems and fish populations.
Yeah.
Tidal energy, it's still a baby industry, but as we invest in R&D, you could see new job opportunities popping up in coastal communities down the line.
Makes sense. Now, geothermal energy, it pops up in conversations, but I feel like a lot of people don't really understand it. The analysis highlights it as this reliable, constant source of power. What does it need to really take off?
The analysis is really excited about enhanced geothermal systems, EGS. It's basically creating these artificial reservoirs underground by pumping fluid into hot, dry rock. That means you could tap into geothermal energy in areas that weren't suitable for traditional geothermal plants. Supporting research and development in EGS, that's seen as key to unlocking this huge resource. Plus, the analysis suggests that incentives tailored to specific states can be really effective in driving geothermal development in areas that have good potential.
So more localized, targeted support for geothermal.
Exactly. State-level incentives can be more responsive to the unique needs and characteristics of geothermal resources within their borders. And by developing geothermal, we're adding another piece to that diverse renewable energy mix for the U.S.
And what does it mean for the communities where these geothermal projects are happening?
Well, they can create local jobs and provide a source of stable energy prices. The analysis also stresses the importance of educating the public about geothermal energy, raising awareness about its benefits and potential. That helps build community support for those projects.
Got it. So we've talked about a lot of different energy sources, and this idea of balanced incentives keeps coming up. Can you unpack that a bit more? Why is it so important for the overall progress of our energy resources?
Well, if we don't have a balanced approach to incentives, we risk messing up the market. We could end up hindering the development of promising technologies in certain sectors and even make issues of social and economic equity worse. A diversified energy strategy where we're supporting all these different sources with balanced incentives, that makes our economy stronger globally. It reduces our reliance on those volatile international fuel markets and encourages innovation across a wider range of energy technologies.
And how does all of this fit into the bigger picture of U.S. energy policy? It sounds like we need more than just individual incentives for specific technologies, right?
You're right. The analysis stresses that we need a comprehensive approach, something that involves coordinated efforts across all levels of government, federal, state, and local. At the federal level, you have research programs for the Department of Energy, regulations from the EPA, legislation from Congress providing funding and those tax incentives we've been talking about, and even decisions from the courts. Then at the state and local level, you have things like renewable portfolio standards, which require a certain percentage of electricity to come from renewables, carbon pricing mechanisms, net metering policies for like rooftop solar, and specific incentives to develop certain industries. All those play a crucial role in shaping our energy landscape.
And this isn't just about government action, right? The private sector has to be a big part of this too.
Absolutely. The analysis highlights how important both the public and private sectors are. It takes research and development happening at universities and national labs, private companies engineering and manufacturing those energy infrastructure components, and then those critical stages of project development, procurement, and deployment, whether it's big utility-scale projects or smaller distributed energy resources. It's a team effort.
And the analysis also talks about different types of incentives, right? You have those technology-neutral ones, market-driven adjustments, and investments in infrastructure. How do those all work together?
So technology-neutral incentives, like tax credits that are available to a bunch of different clean energy technologies based on their output or investment, those are designed to create a level playing field. Let the different solutions compete based on what they can deliver. Market-driven policies, like putting a price on carbon emissions, those can incentivize innovation and encourage people to adopt cleaner energy sources by making the polluting options more expensive. And finally, we need major investment in critical infrastructure. I'm talking about a modern smart grid, upgraded transmission lines to move electricity around, large-scale energy storage facilities. All that's essential to support a more flexible, reliable energy system that can handle a mix of different sources.
So within that comprehensive framework, those specific incentives we discussed for each energy resource, from CCS for natural gas to R&D for geothermal, those are the tools we can use to encourage the balanced advancement of each.
Exactly. The big policy framework gives us structure and direction, and the specific incentives we've talked about, those are the tailored mechanisms we use within that framework to help each energy resource develop and get deployed. That way, we're contributing to an overall energy system that's balanced and resilient.
So ultimately, the goal is to have a strong national energy strategy that powers the industries and technologies of the future. What does a successful strategy look like, according to this analysis?
Well, it says a successful national energy strategy aims to give the U.S. a lasting advantage in the global economy. We can do that by fostering innovation and making it easier to export cutting-edge energy technologies and services. It also means using our own domestic energy resources wisely so we depend less on those potentially unreliable foreign energy imports. And a successful strategy creates a lot of jobs in those new clean energy sectors, drives technological advancements that boost productivity across the entire economy, and ensures that all Americans have more equitable access to energy.
It's a really complex issue, but it seems clear that we need a well-thought-out, balanced approach to incentivizing all these different energy resources. It's not about picking winners and losers. It's about nurturing this dynamic, adaptable energy ecosystem for the future.
Absolutely. The policy choices we make in the next few years, those are going to have a big impact on our energy security, our economic prosperity, our place in the world. There's a lot at stake.
So, thinking about how all these energy sources are connected and how big of an impact these policy decisions can have, I want to leave you with this. What's the most important principle, the one that should guide how we incentivize energy resources? What will best serve future generations and drive progress? It's a question worth thinking about as we navigate this energy transition.